Hi everybody and welcome back to my Booktube channel, Books with Leo, and today I am here to talk about my all-time favourite audiobooks. I haven't been listening to audiobooks for that long actually, because when I was younger I used to think that audiobooks were just not for me. I could never really concentrate enough on them to actually follow the story, so I was always like, because whenever I listened to audiobooks I just couldn't fully grasp like everything being told in the story. And I have discovered that there are some stories that are just better fit for me to read physically, such as fantasy books. I really genuinely enjoy fantasy books more when I just read them like as printed pages on paper or on my iPad. But contemporary books, for example, or poetry books, or like any other book really that isn't like a really complicated high fantasy, does work for me on audiobook. And also a lot of audiobooks work for me when I'm doing something else. So that's a big tip as well. Like for example, I love to journal and then listen to audiobooks, and this makes my drawings better because there's something happening on the side whilst I'm drawing, and this also makes my concentration for the audiobook so much better because I'm like doing something whilst I'm listening. So yeah, that is my biggest tip I think if you want to get into audiobooks. Also, another disclaimer that I want to make is that if you think listening to audiobooks is not real reading, then this is not the video for you. Like, I didn't make this so people could go down here and comment and like be rude and be like, oh my god, but audiobooks aren't real reading. And also, this is a very ableist standpoint. Like, there are so many people that are not able to read physical books due to maybe learning disabilities or due to dyslexia or concentration issues, ADHD, even mental issues. There are so many reasons that some people sometimes can't read physically, and so saying that reading audiobooks or listening to audiobooks is not real reading is just very ableist and not a good look. So as someone who regularly deals with mental health issues and mental health struggles, I really enjoy audiobooks as well because it takes like less active brain thinking. What did I just say? Listening to audiobooks for me takes less effort. No, it's not the right word, but it takes like, it's easier sometimes. With all of that out of the way, let's get into the recommendation. So the first audiobook I want to talk about is Ace of Shades by Amanda Foody. So this is a fantasy book and it is very similar to Six of Crows, I feel like. I haven't heard it being compared to it that much, but it is very similar in my opinion, because it's both about like magical heists and like magical gangs going on heists, which is my favorite thing. My favorite, like, it's not really a trope, but for me it is, because I read so many books about this subject that it almost becomes a trope. I love this audiobook. It captured the story so well, and even though it's quite a long audiobook, I think it's, I don't know how many hours, but it's on the long side, I still really enjoyed the story. And especially when I got like past like I think like a couple of hours, I was just so in it and I didn't want to stop listening, and then I almost finished it in 2 days because I was just constantly journaling, listening to this. It was so good. I was enjoying myself so much, and I haven't seen this book been discussed on Booktube a whole lot, so I feel like that's really a shame. This world is very different from Six of Crows, like Upper Hat. It's just, it has similar vibes, you know? It's not the same, it has similar vibes. So our main character is Anne Salter, and in this world everybody is born with 2 talents. So they have like a blot talent and they have another talent, and the blot talent comes from their family. So with Anne, that is dancing, but she's not really a good dancer. She's like sort of mediocre, you know? And her mother, or I think she's her adoptive mother, I'm not 100% sure, it's been a while, goes missing, and the only clue she has is to go to the city of sin, and no one likes to go there because it's full of sins, and Anne is like a nice girl, you know? She doesn't go to bad places. A guy with clues there would be Levi Glacier, but Levi Glacier is the chief of a gang, but Anne doesn't know this. So Anne has lost her mother and goes to the city of sin to find Levi Glacier, and from there our adventure begins. And this story is just full of magical casinos, magical underground gangs, people with magical abilities. There's some circus themes in it as well, which I love, and I love this book, and the audiobook is really great. I think especially the pacing is really good, the way the story unfolds, it's done so well, and yeah, I highly recommend this audiobook. The next audiobook I want to talk about is Sadie by Courtney Summers. This is a full production audiobook, it's like full cast. It is so like wonderful. So the story actually I didn't care that much about the story. Like, I wasn't that bothered, to be honest. And so I think if I would have read this book physically, I wouldn't have cared at all. But the audiobook was just so mesmerizing. It was full cast. It's like a whole production. It felt almost as if it was like listening to theatre. Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating, but I really enjoyed it. In this audiobook and in this book, we follow Sadie. Sadie's sister was murdered a long time ago, and this is a very tragic happening, and then Sadie goes missing, and so on one hand we follow Sadie trying to avenge her sister's death, and on the other hand we follow a guy who is making a podcast, like a true crime podcast about this whole thing, and who's interviewing people and talking to Sadie's mother and grandma. And it is so well done. Like, all the characters are such good actors. The narration is just amazing. The podcast, like, I would have listened to the podcast. I love true crime podcasts, and this was just so good. If you like true crime podcasts, this is definitely a book you should check out. Okay, I'm already 7 minutes in. I've only had 2 audiobooks. Oh my god. By the way, I've recently seen both Fodwa from World Wonders do this video, and also Noelle from Noelle Gallagher, who are both my friends here on Booktube. So I just wanted to shout that out a little. Not that they need my shout outs, because they're both amazing and doing so well. But I love them, and yeah, you should check them out as well. So if you have seen this video about audiobooks and you want to get more audiobook recommendations, definitely check both of them out. So just wanted to say that, because I was like a little bit inspired by them to also make a video similar. Right, another book that I really enjoyed on audio was Howl's Moving Castle by Deanna Wynne-Jones. This is of course a classic. A lot of people especially love the Studio Ghibli film. It's really wonderful. I remember reading this book when I was younger and I wasn't that bothered. I didn't care that much. But listening to the audiobook has really changed my perception, because the audiobook carries all the vibes that supposedly the film carries as well, or at least it really gave me the Ghibli vibes. I'm not even sure what I'm on about, but like, it was so lovely. There's like this little orchestra that plays in between chapters that is all like boom boom. Okay, this is the worst impression ever, but it is so lovely and cute, and it's just so wonderful and cozy and warm, and such a good feel-good book. The audiobook, I would recommend it to absolutely everybody. It was so heartwarming. So this story is about Sophie, who, like, oh my god, how does it work again? So we've got Sophie, and she's got 2 sisters, and basically they all get their like apprenticeship when they come of age, so they but all go into like different disciplines, and Sophie gets to work in a hat shop, even though she's got like some magical abilities, but she doesn't get to explore them, even though her sisters do get that chance. Then when she's working in the hat shop and living a very uneventful life compared to her sisters, she gets cursed by this witch who visits the hat shop, and then Sophie seeks out the wizard Howl that lives in a moving castle near their town, and she hops on the castle and makes friends with a fire demon living inside the castle, and also the apprentice that Howl has taken on, and she has been cursed to look like an old lady, so Howl doesn't know she's Sophie. And from here on out, the adventure begins, and you discover like everything that's happening inside the moving castle. And Howl is the worst character ever, but he's still very lovable, and it's just, oh, he's such an eccentric wizard, and the whole cast of characters in this book is just so wonderful. The audiobook is also very short. I think it's around 4 hours, and it was wonderful. And like, the orchestra music in between chapters is so wonderful. It really gives the whole thing such a great vibe. The atmosphere is so good. So yeah, I would definitely recommend this audiobook. Okie dokie, the next audiobook I want to talk about is I'll Be the One by Lila Lee. This is a book about a plus size dancer and singer who really wants to be a K-pop star, and she's also bisexual. I really love that, and it's just, this book is so wonderful. I love listening to contemporaries. I think most of all, I don't know, they're the easiest for me to concentrate on whilst doing something else, and they're just mostly very heartwarming and like funny, light-hearted, which is what I love in books. So yeah, this book is just, it tackles some important themes such as fat phobia. There's a lot of fat phobia in this book, but it's handled so well, and our main character is so incredibly inspiring. There are loads of queer side characters as well. There's of course a lot of Korean American characters, and the K-pop world is very well like written. I think I don't know anything about K-pop, so maybe I'm not the best judge of this, so I'm sorry, but I'm not that into K-pop at all. I hardly ever listen to K-pop, but because of this I started listening to Blackpink because I was just so inspired, and yeah, so that's really cool. Yeah, it was just an all-around fun audiobook, and I really enjoyed listening to it. Another audiobook that I really enjoyed listening to was The Haunting of Tramcar 015 by P. Jelly Clark. This book has gotten a lot of attention on this channel recently because it was one of my favourites of this year so far, and it is just so wonderfully narrated, and there's so much humour in this book and so much witty banter. I feel like I say the words witty banter like 50 times in each video, and I'm not sorry, but I also am kind of sorry. Anyway, it is such a fun book. It's about the ministry of alchemy, enchantments, and magical creatures, and two agents from that ministry alchemy, enchantments, and magical creatures. Anyway, it's about two agents. God, what are they called again? Onsi and Hamed, I think. And they are being called in by this guy with a haunted tramcar, and they need to solve the haunting. And it's basically about an alternative Cairo that is magical and has like different sorts of people, robots, magical creatures living in there. And the women's movement of Cairo, the feminist women's movement, also plays a really big role in this book. And it's also cool to read something that is not like a Western perspective, also by a black author. And yeah, this is just such an enjoyable book. The audiobook is really great. It's so fun. It's just, yeah, a big favourite of mine. Another book that I enjoyed on audiobook so much, and that has also gotten a lot of attention on this channel, so I'll keep it short, is You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson. I'm sorry, I'm not shutting up about this book. This is about Liz Leidy, who wants to become prom queen, and she wants to become prom queen because she needs the scholarship to go to the school of her dreams, and she falls in love with another girl who's also running for prom queen, so they can't be together, but yeah, she's in love, you know, and it's like they love each other. This book is so cute. It's so cute. It's so heartwarming. I loved it so much. I love it. I love it so much. And it makes my heart so warm and happy, and it makes me hopeful for finding love one day. That sounded really desperate, but I don't know. I'm really happy to be single, guys, but still, this book made me want to be in a relationship because it was so cute, and I really enjoyed it. It's a great summer read as well, I think. And the narrator has such a lovely voice. It's got like a little vocal fry, but in the best way possible, and she's wonderful to listen to. I listened to this on some very hot summer days out on the balcony by the pool, just like vibing, lounging, and it was so wonderful. It was the best experience ever. So yeah, I would recommend this audiobook highly. Right, another series that I really enjoy on audiobook is The Mystery of Black Hollow Lane by Julia Noble. I would describe this as a middle grade Ninth House. I don't know if you guys know Ninth House by Lee Bardugo, which is basically very dark academia murder mystery with magical elements. And I think this series is sort of the middle grade edition of that. I don't know. This is about Emmy, who gets sent off by her mother to a boarding school in England, and there she discovers a secret society that has like a magical underground thing going on. Or is it magical? Maybe I just made that up. And she is there together with her best friends. She makes really great friends. Soccer also plays a really big role in this book because Emmy loves to football. One of her friends is Irish, I think, or Scottish. I don't remember because it's been a while. But the accent that the narrator does in the first audiobook is so good because Emmy is American. So like there's many different accents in this book. And the narrator does such a good job also at conveying like characters. So she really like acts and like delves into it and does all the voices. And it is so much fun. I think this book also gave me a lot of nostalgia for the series we don't talk about anymore, Harry Potter. And it's so wonderful. It's so lovely. And I really want to like listen to this with my child if I ever have a child. I don't know if I'll ever have children, but like I just imagine reading this to a kid or listening to it together with a kid, and it's just so beautiful and wonderful and loving. And there's also a lot of great elements in this story about like being true to yourself and growing up and having a parent that can be very distant or absent. And yeah, it's just really great, and it's full of twists and turns that even I as an adult did not see coming. So yeah, The Mystery of Black Hollow Lane and the second book, The Secret of Whitestone Gate, are two middle grade audiobooks that I really, really love. Another audiobook that I really enjoyed is Mary Ventura in the Ninth Kingdom by Sylvia Plath. Since listening to this on audiobook, I have also read the physical book several times, and I think this is my favourite book. Like one of my really, really favourite books. I sort of forgot about it because otherwise I might have also talked about it in my favourite books of this year so far video, because I only have 5 books in this video and I could have added a few. But Mary Ventura was the first book I read by Sylvia Plath, and I also really want to read The Bell Jar. Oh my god. I love stories. Like this is a short story, so it's only like 45 minutes on audio, and I really love stories about like stories that feel a bit weird and that have like not a great time concept and that feel very feverish and dreamlike. That is also why I love Erin Morgenstern, and this story really has that quality. And next to that, this book also really has that sort of dark twist at some point where you're starting to realize what is happening with the characters and like what is happening with the main character and what is actually going on. And so that dark twist really puts like a really dark theme over the whole story and makes everything look different, like puts it all in a different light, and that is just so well done. I know that this is one of the stories that Sylvia Plath wrote when she was very young, and it inspired me so much. It made me realize like I really want to write one day. I want to be a writer. I've always wanted to be a writer, and this just inspired me tremendously. It was so good. It was so wonderful. I know these are really empty words, but I've just told you why I thought it was so good. And I think the audiobook is also really good because this is a story that you get sucked into so easily, and when you read it physically, it is done so quickly. Like you can read this book in half an hour and it's just over with. And okay, the audiobook is only 15 minutes longer, but still it like stretches out the experience a little bit, and also because the narrator really brings a lot of atmosphere to the story and to the way they use their voice. And yeah, I love this audiobook and I would recommend it to anybody. Okay, I think the next one might be the last audiobook that I talk about because, oh no, I'm distracted. Okay, I really need to mention this audiobook as well. Okay, so another audiobook I really enjoyed is The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. Oh my god. This story, I read it partly on audiobook, so I listened to the first half of it, and then the rest I read it physically. And I was so majorly creeped out by this story. Oh my god. This book creeped me out like no book has creeped me ever out before. This thriller is so menacing, basically. Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay, so this is basically about a girl who is invited to nanny for a very rich family. And she goes to their house, and it's basically a smart house. So she's taking care of 3 children, a baby and 2 toddlers. And like one of them toddlers is like a little bit older, and this house is like a smart house, so there's like cameras everywhere. The parents are away a lot, and she's invited immediately to babysit for the children in the first weekend, and very creepy, scary stuff starts happening in this house, and you'll never expect what's coming. It is crazy, and she thinks that there might also be ghosts at play because the children, like some of them say they can see ghosts. It is so scary. This book was so scary, especially with the audiobook, because the audiobook really brought so much atmosphere to the story. I've said that a couple of times now, but I think audiobooks can really do that. And this one especially, the narrator was really good. She did all these different voices and different accents. Like the old nanny has a really thick accent, which I enjoyed a lot. And it was so creepy. I was so creeped out. I was listening to this at night and I just had to stop it because I was so scared. I was physically scared. I was so scared. It was so scary. I can't say it enough. And it was also really well thought out, and it's just so good. So I would recommend this audiobook to all of you guys. Would this even be a video of mine without a mention of Neil Gaiman? Neil Gaiman is one of my favourite authors of all time. It is my lifelong dream to once interview Neil Gaiman. That would mean the world to me, but I love all of his books, and I want to highlight a few that are really good in audiobook. Like, all of them are good in audiobook, but these few specifically. So I would like to talk about Mirror Mask by Neil Gaiman, which is a very short book, and I listened to this book on audiobook. And this is basically about Helena, who has been raised in the circus. Again, I love circus stories, and Helena has actually always wanted a normal life, can't relate. But then she gets sort of swooped away by magical music coming into her life, and she discovers this magical place somewhere else. And when she's on the other side, discovering like this fantasy world, her real life in the normal world gets stolen away by somebody else, so she can't go back to the normal world. I feel like this is a really big theme in Neil Gaiman's books, that you should be careful what you wish for, and careful to not be grateful of your current situation, because it can always get worse, I guess. And so this happens in Coraline as well, where the girl discovers a magical world and then she can't go back to her normal life, which was actually pretty great, you know? And it happens in this book as well. And so Helena must really try to get back her old life. I think this book is less creepy than Coraline. Coraline is really creepy. It is so creepy, but it's still one of my favorites. And I think Mirror Mask is a little less creepy, but it's definitely still creepy. So if you don't like creepy stuff, maybe this is not for you, but I enjoyed it. There are so many great themes in this book. It is so scary, and it's still very interesting to read about. And the narrator, I think Neil Gaiman narrates a lot of his own audiobooks. I think he narrated this one as well, but I'm not 100% sure. He does such a great job. Loved it. Another book by Neil Gaiman that I really enjoyed in audio is Art Matters. This is a non-fiction book, and this is basically when Neil Gaiman talks all about writing fantasy, why imagination is so important for children and for adults as well, and it's just really wonderful, and I loved it. Okay, the last book I want to talk about, the last audiobook, is Fierce, Femmes and Notorious Liars by Kai Cheng Tom. I've talked about this book more in other recent videos as well, but this was really one of my favourites this year so far. Also didn't mention this one in my favourites video. I'm sorry, I'm so chaotic, I forget everything. But this book was so good! The prose was so beautiful, it was so wonderful, and also this is really a genre-bending story because Kai Cheng Tom really, it's like sort of an autobiography, but it's also magical realism, and it's also fictionalized, and it's just so good. The prose is it's such purple prose, it almost feels like poetry at certain points. It's so magical, fantastical, and the themes in this book, I haven't even gotten to that yet, but so many important themes. So Kai Cheng Tom herself is Asian and trans, and the main character of this book is also a young Asian trans girl, and she grows up in a very abusive household, so definitely some trigger warnings for that. And she runs away, basically. She leaves her sister, which she feels very bad about, and she discovers the Street of Miracles, which is this place where all these young trans women and girls have found each other and are helping each other. And there's even like one mom that like takes them all in and helps them all with different things and surgeries, and it's just so wonderful. But even the Street of Miracles is not a safe space forever because trans girls start getting murdered on the streets, especially trans girls of colour, which is very harrowing to read about, but also very gritty and confronting, I guess, because this happens, you know. And combined with the magical elements, this story makes it sort of even more, like it hits you even harder. I don't know how, but it really does. And basically, our main character goes into this vigilante crime-fighting group of trans girls, and together they start fighting all the awful murderers in their community that are murdering women on Miracle Street. And this book is just so full of magic, full of amazing women fighting for their lives, fighting for themselves, discovering who they are, and it's just so wonderful. It's a lot about sexuality as well, and I don't hear anybody talking about it. I don't get it, but it's so important. It's so good. I could listen to it for hours on end. The way the story is told, the way all the characters have such persona, so good. Enjoyed it so much. Okay, I don't want this video to be hours long, so I'm going to stop it here, even though I have so many more audiobooks I could blabber on about. I really hope you guys took away some great recommendations for this. Definitely let me know if you enjoy listening to audiobooks and if you have any recommendations down below, and let me know what you thought of this video. Don't forget to click the bell so you're always aware when I upload a new video. Don't forget to subscribe and like, and yeah, I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!